Professor Helena Ashford had examined wedding portraits for over 2 decades as the head curator at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, Textile and Fashion Archive. From Victorian bustle gowns to Art Deco flapper dresses, she had catalogued thousands of bridal photographs, each telling its own story of love, fashion, and social history. But the portrait that arrived on her desk that crisp October morning in 2024 would challenge everything she thought she knew about fashion, history, and the nature of time itself. The photograph had been donated by the estate of Mrs. Catherine Blackwood, whose family had collected antique portraits for generations. It showed a bride from 1913, posed in the typical formal style of the Edwardian era. The woman appeared to be in her early 20s, with dark hair arranged in the Gibson girl style popular at the time. Her dress was exquisite, cream silk adorned, with intricate lacework that spoke to the finest craftsmanship of the period. Helena began her standard documentation process, photographing the portrait at high resolution to preserve it for the museum's digital archive. The 1913 wedding dress was particularly notable for its elaborate lace details, which covered the high collar, long sleeves, and bodice in patterns that seemed almost impossibly complex. As Helena adjusted the lighting to better capture the lacework, something caught her attention. Under the bright museum lights, certain sections of the lace appeared to contain patterns that seemed oddly familiar, yet completely out of place for 1913. She reached for her magnifying glass and focused on the bride's sleeve, where the most intricate lacework was concentrated. What she saw made her pulse quicken with disbelief. Embedded within the delicate floral patterns of the Edwardian lace were unmistakable images: tiny helicopters, jets with swept-back wings, and what appeared to be rockets reaching toward stars. These weren't abstract decorative elements. They were precise depictions of aircraft and spacecraft that wouldn't be invented for decades. Helena's hands trembled as she examined more sections of the dress. The lace on the bodice contained images of television screens, computers, and what looked suspiciously like cell phones. The collar featured patterns that, when viewed closely, revealed atomic symbols and DNA double helix structures, scientific concepts that were unknown in 1913. Her first instinct was to assume she was looking at a modern reproduction or an elaborate hoax, but everything else about the photograph screamed authenticity. The sepia toning, the photographic paper, even the studio backdrop, all matched the period perfectly. She decided to call in Dr. Richard Sterling, the museum's leading expert on textile authentication. Dr. Sterling had spent 30 years studying historical fabrics and had access to equipment that could definitively date lace samples using fiber analysis and weaving technique examination. When Dr. Sterling arrived 2 days later, Helena showed him the photograph without mentioning her concerns about the lace patterns. She wanted to see if he would notice the anomalies. Independently, Dr. Sterling spent an hour examining the image under various magnification levels. His expertise in Edwardian fashion was encyclopedic. He could identify the specific type of guipure, lace, the hand-sewn construction techniques, and even the probable origin of the silk used in the dress. "This is exceptional work," Dr. Sterling commented, studying the intricate patterns. "The lace appears to be handmade Brussels lace, which was the finest quality available in 1913. The techniques used here are consistent with early 20th century craftsmanship." Then Helena directed his attention to the specific sections that had troubled her. Dr. Sterling's expression changed from professional admiration to complete bewilderment as he focused on the impossible imagery woven into the lace. Aircraft that wouldn't fly until the 1940s, electronic devices from the late 20th century, and scientific symbols representing knowledge that didn't exist in 1913. "This is impossible," Dr. Sterling whispered, adjusting his equipment again and again. "The lace techniques are definitely period correct, but these images, they're depicting technology from decades in the future. If you think this wedding portrait is mysterious now, wait until you discover what happens when they trace the bride's identity and uncover the shocking truth about her family's connection to prophecy and time." Subscribe now and hit that notification bell, because this investigation is about to reveal secrets that will change how you think about fate and destiny. Helena and Dr. Sterling decided to have the photograph examined by Dr. Maria Santos, a forensic analyst who specialized in detecting photographic manipulations and anachronisms. Dr. Santos had consulted on numerous cases involving allegedly historical photographs and had access to advanced digital analysis tools. Dr. Santos's examination took place over 3 days, using high-resolution scanning, chemical analysis of the photographic materials, and digital enhancement techniques that could reveal any signs of modern manipulation or composition. Her findings were as definitive as they were impossible to explain. The photograph was authentic, created in 1913 using period-correct materials and techniques. The chemical composition of the silver halide emulsion, the type of albumin paper, and even the specific mounting adhesives, all dated to the correct time period. There were no signs of digital manipulation, double exposure, or any other form of modern alteration. But most disturbing of all, the lace patterns containing futuristic imagery showed the same aging and wear characteristics as the rest of the dress. Whatever process had created those impossible images had occurred in 1913, not in modern times. "I've never encountered anything like this," Dr. Santos admitted in her official report. The evidence clearly indicates that this lace was created in 1913, yet it contains imagery of technology that wouldn't exist for decades. It challenges everything we understand about historical documentation. Helena realized she needed to identify the bride in the photograph. If they could trace her identity and family history, perhaps they could find some explanation for the impossible lace patterns, using genealogical databases and historical records. Helena began searching for information about weddings that took place in 1913. The studio stamp on the back of the photograph indicated it was taken at Whitmore and Associates Photography in Salem, Massachusetts, the same town that had been associated with supernatural phenomena for centuries. The search led her to marriage records from Salem's City Hall, where she found an entry for Miss Evangeline Thorne, who married Mr. Jonathan Blackwood on October 13, 1913. The bride's age was listed as 22, and her father was recorded as Professor Ezekiel Thorne. Helena's research into Professor Ezekiel Thorne revealed a fascinating and disturbing history that seemed to explain the impossible wedding dress. Professor Thorne had been a respected academic at Harvard University until 1890. When his research into what he called temporal mechanics had destroyed his career. His papers, preserved in Harvard's archives, described theories about time as a nonlinear phenomenon that could be observed, and even influenced under certain conditions. Thorne had been particularly interested in what he termed prophetic manifestation, the idea that knowledge of future events could somehow influence present-day reality. His research suggested that individuals with certain genetic predispositions might be able to access information from future time periods and incorporate it into their present-day creations. His academic career ended when he presented a paper claiming to have documented cases of temporal bleeding instances where knowledge from the future had manifested in historical artifacts. The scientific community dismissed his work as pseudoscience, and he was quietly forced into early retirement. But Professor Thorne hadn't abandoned his research. He had simply moved it to his private estate in Salem, where he continued studying temporal phenomena in secret. Helena found Thorne's personal journals in the Salem Historical Society archives, filed away and forgotten for over a century. His entries from 1912 to 1913 were particularly relevant to the mysterious wedding photograph. According to his notes, Professor Thorne had discovered that his daughter, Evangeline, possessed what he called temporal sensitivity, an ability to perceive future events and incorporate that knowledge into her creative work. She had been creating lacework since childhood that contained images of things that didn't yet exist. Thorne's journal entry from September 1913 described his daughter's preparation for her wedding. Evangeline has been working on her wedding dress for months, incorporating patterns that she claims come to her in dreams. The images she weaves are of flying machines, communication devices, and scientific discoveries that she insists will exist in the coming decades. I have documented each pattern carefully, as they may prove to be genuine glimpses of humanity's future development. The journal continued with increasingly detailed observations. The lace patterns Evangeline creates appear to be prophetic in nature. She describes seeing metal birds that carry people through the sky, talking boxes that show moving pictures, and thinking machines that can answer any question. While these visions seem fantastical, her previous predictions have shown remarkable accuracy. Helena discovered that Professor Thorne had been documenting his daughter's prophetic abilities for years. His records showed that Evangeline had predicted numerous historical events before they occurred, including the sinking of the Titanic in 1912, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, and even the outbreak of what would become World War I. But the most chilling entries in Thorne's journal described Evangeline's visions of what she called the Great Wars to come, and the technological developments that would emerge from humanity's conflicts. According to her father's documentation, Evangeline had described aerial warfare, involving metal birds that dropped fire from the sky, weapons that could destroy entire cities with single explosions, and communication systems that would allow people to speak with anyone in the world instantly. All of these visions had been incorporated into the lacework of her wedding dress, creating a prophetic tapestry of humanity's technological future, woven into 1913 Edwardian fashion. But Professor Thorne's journals also contained warnings about his daughter's abilities that made Helena's blood run cold. Evangeline's visions are becoming more intense and disturbing. Thorne wrote in his final entry, dated October 12, 1913, one day before the wedding. She speaks of seeing the end of all things, and claims that her wedding dress will serve as a warning to future generations. She insists that those who understand her message must prepare for what is coming. Helena realized that she might be looking at more than just a historical curiosity. If Evangeline Thorne had indeed possessed genuine prophetic abilities, her wedding dress might contain warnings about future events that had yet to occur. She decided to examine the lace patterns more carefully, documenting each futuristic image and trying to understand what they might represent. Using high-resolution photography and digital enhancement, she began cataloging the prophetic elements woven into the 1913 bridal gown. What she discovered was a comprehensive visual timeline of technological development spanning from 1913 to the present day, and possibly beyond. The sleeve patterns showed the evolution of aircraft, from early biplanes to modern jets to spacecraft that had only recently been developed. The bodice contained images of communication devices, progressing from early radios to televisions to modern smartphones and computers. The collar featured scientific symbols representing discoveries in atomic physics, genetics, and space exploration. But most disturbing were the patterns near the bottom of the dress, which showed imagery that Helena couldn't immediately identify. These sections contained symbols and devices that didn't match any known technology, suggesting they might represent future developments that had yet to occur. As Helena documented these prophetic patterns, she began to notice something that made her hands tremble. The technological timeline woven into the lace wasn't random. It followed a specific sequence that seemed to be building towards something catastrophic. The pattern progression showed humanity's technological advancement accelerating rapidly through the 20th and early 21st centuries, but then the imagery became darker and more ominous. The final sections of lace contained symbols of destruction, environmental collapse, and what appeared to be global conflict on an unprecedented scale. Dr. Sterling, who had been helping with the documentation, noticed the same troubling progression. It's as if she was showing the price of all this technological advancement, he observed. The pattern seems to suggest that humanity's rapid development would eventually lead to its own destruction. Helena decided to research what had happened to Evangeline Thorne after her wedding. If she had continued to have prophetic visions, there might be additional documentation of her predictions and their accuracy. The search led her to tragic discoveries that seemed to validate the authenticity of Evangeline's prophetic abilities. Marriage records showed that Evangeline and Jonathan Blackwood had indeed married on October 13, 1913, but their happiness was short-lived. Jonathan died in France in 1917, one of the millions of casualties of World War I, a conflict that Evangeline had apparently foreseen and incorporated into her wedding dress patterns. After her husband's death, Evangeline retreated to her father's estate in Salem, where she continued creating prophetic lacework until her own death in 1923, at the age of 32. Local records indicated that she had spent her final years creating what she called warning tapestries, large lace panels that depicted future disasters and technological developments. Most of these tapestries had been donated to various museums after her death, but their prophetic nature had not been recognized at the time. Helena began contacting museums across New England to see if any still possessed examples of Evangeline's later work. The search led to shocking discoveries at institutions from Boston to New York. Museums had been unknowingly storing prophetic artifacts for a century, dismissing them as examples of fantastic or abstract early 20th century textile art. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston possessed a 1920 lace panel that depicted what was clearly the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Metropolitan Museum in New York had a 1922 tapestry showing the attack on the World Trade Center with remarkable accuracy. The Smithsonian held a 1923 piece that depicted what appeared to be a global pandemic, complete with images of people wearing face masks and cities under lockdown. Each piece had been catalogued as decorative, art with abstract symbolic elements, but when viewed with knowledge of Evangeline's prophetic abilities, they became clear documentation of future historical events. Helena realized she was uncovering one of the most significant discoveries in human history, genuine prophetic artifacts that had been hidden in plain sight for over a century. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. As Helena continued researching Evangeline's later works, she found references to a final tapestry that the young woman had been working on at the time of her death in 1923. According to her father's notes, this piece was different from all the others. Instead of showing past or present events, it depicted what Evangeline called the final warning. Professor Thorne's final journal entries described this last tapestry in terms that sent chills down Helena's spine. Evangeline works day and night on what she claims will be her final piece. She speaks of seeing the great choosing time when humanity must decide its fate. The patterns she weaves are unlike anything she has created before. They show not just events, but choices, and the consequences of those choices. She insists this tapestry must be preserved for those who will face the final decision. The tapestry had disappeared after Evangeline's death, and Professor Thorne's estate had been sold and dispersed. Helena began searching for any trace of this final prophetic work, following leads through auction records, estate sales, and private collections. The search led her back to the Blackwood family, the same family that had donated the original wedding portrait. Catherine Blackwood, whose estate had provided the photograph, was Jonathan Blackwood's great niece. Her family had apparently been the guardians of Evangeline's prophetic legacy for generations. Helena contacted the Blackwood estate attorney and explained her research. The response was both revealing and terrifying. The Blackwood family had indeed been preserving Evangeline's prophetic works, including the mysterious final tapestry, but they had also been documenting the accuracy of her predictions, keeping detailed records of how her visions had proven correct over the decades. According to family records, every major technological development and historical disaster, the 20th and early 21st centuries, had been accurately depicted in Evangeline's lace. The family had used her prophecies to make strategic decisions that had preserved and increased their wealth over generations. But they had also been waiting for the time when Evangeline's final warning would become relevant. The estate attorney arranged for Helena to view the final tapestry at the Blackwood family's private museum in Salem. What she saw there would change her understanding of humanity's future forever. You're about to discover what Evangeline's final prophecy revealed about humanity's immediate future, and why the Blackwood family has been preparing for over a century. Make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next will show you why this wedding dress was never just about the past. It was about the choice we all face today. The final tapestry was massive, measuring 12 feet by 8 feet, and unlike any textile work Helena had ever encountered. The lace was so intricate and detailed that it appeared almost three-dimensional, with patterns that seemed to shift and move as the viewer's perspective changed. The images woven into this final piece were unlike Evangeline's earlier works. Instead of depicting specific technological devices or historical events, the tapestry showed what appeared to be branching pathways, each leading to radically different outcomes for human civilization. One path showed humanity achieving incredible technological advancement, with cities floating in space, diseases eliminated, and environmental problems solved through advanced science. But this path also showed increasing disconnection from nature and spirituality, leading to a kind of technological paradise that seems strangely empty of human warmth and creativity. The other path showed humanity pulling back from rapid technological development, focusing instead on sustainable living and spiritual growth. This path led to a world of restored natural environments and deeply connected communities, but also showed slower progress in addressing global challenges, like disease and resource scarcity. But most disturbing was the point where the two paths converged, a moment that the tapestry depicted as occurring in the early 21st century. At this convergence point, humanity would face what Evangeline had called the Great Choosing Time, a moment when the species would have to decide which path to follow. The tapestry showed this decision point occurring during a period of global crisis, when technological advancement and environmental destruction would reach a critical threshold simultaneously. The choice would not be made by governments or leaders, but by individuals, who would somehow understand the true nature of the decision they faced. Helena realized with growing alarm that the timing depicted in the tapestry matched the current global situation almost perfectly. Climate change, technological disruption, social unrest, and spiritual awakening were all occurring simultaneously, creating exactly the kind of crisis convergence that Evangeline had foreseen. But the most shocking element of the final tapestry was its interactive nature. As Helena studied the piece more closely, she realized that the lace patterns actually changed depending on the viewer's perspective and state of mind. The images seemed to respond to the observer's thoughts and emotions, showing different possible futures based on their hopes, fears, and intentions. The Blackwood family records indicated that this interactive quality had been intentional. Evangeline had somehow created a prophetic artifact that would help individuals understand their role in humanity's great choosing time. According to family documentation, Evangeline had left specific instructions about when and how the final tapestry should be revealed to the world. She had predicted that the right person would discover her wedding portrait at exactly the right time, leading them to the final warning, when humanity most needed to receive it. Helena realized with a mixture of awe and terror that she had been chosen to be the messenger for Evangeline's ultimate prophecy. The family records contained Evangeline's final written message, which the Blackwood family had been instructed to reveal only when the tapestry was discovered by someone who could understand its true significance. To those who find this message, the time of choosing has arrived. Humanity stands at the crossroads I have foreseen, where every individual decision contributes to the collective fate of our species. The technological path and the spiritual path need not be enemies, but they must be balanced with wisdom and compassion. Those who understand this message have the power to influence the choice. Use that power wisely, for the future of all consciousness depends on the decisions made in your time. Helena understood that her discovery of the prophetic wedding portrait had been the beginning of something much larger. She wasn't just documenting historical artifacts. She was uncovering a message that had been waiting over a century to reach the people who needed to hear it. But she also realized that sharing this discovery would bring enormous responsibility. If Evangeline's prophecies were genuine, then the knowledge contained in her works could influence humanity's crucial decision about its future direction. Helena spent weeks studying the final tapestry and documenting its changing patterns. She began to understand that the interactive lace was not just showing possible futures. It was actually responding to the collective consciousness of humanity, changing its imagery based on the evolving global situation. The patterns had been shifting more rapidly in recent months, suggesting that the moment of choice was approaching quickly. The convergence point that Evangeline had foreseen was not a distant future possibility. It was happening now. Helena made the decision to document and share Evangeline's prophetic legacy with the world. She organized an exhibition at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts that would display the wedding portrait alongside examples of Evangeline's later works, allowing visitors to see the progression of her prophetic visions. But she also established a research foundation dedicated to studying the implications of Evangeline's prophecies and their potential role in guiding humanity's crucial decisions about technology, environment, and spiritual development. The exhibition opened on October 13, 2024, exactly 111 years after Evangeline's wedding. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Visitors reported having profound experiences while viewing the interactive tapestry, many claiming to receive insights about their own role in humanity's future. Scientists, spiritual leaders, environmentalists, and technologists all found different meanings in Evangeline's prophetic works. But they shared a common understanding that humanity was indeed facing the kind of crucial choice that the young woman had foreseen over a century earlier. The wedding portrait that had started Helena's investigation became the centerpiece of a global conversation about humanity's future. The impossible lace patterns that had initially seemed like historical curiosities were now recognized as genuine glimpses of humanity's technological development and the challenges that accompanied that progress. But most importantly, message about the need to balance technological advancement with spiritual wisdom began to influence policymakers, educators, and individuals around the world. The prophetic wedding dress had become a catalyst for the kind of thoughtful, balanced approach to progress that its creator had envisioned. Helena realized that Evangeline Thorne had achieved something remarkable. Through her prophetic lace, she had created a bridge between past and future, allowing her 1913 insights to influence crucial decisions being made in the 21st century. The wedding portrait, with its impossible lace details, had been waiting over a century to deliver its message at exactly the moment when humanity most needed to hear it. As Helena documented the continuing changes in the interactive tapestry, she understood that Evangeline's prophecy was still unfolding. The great choosing time was not a single moment, but an ongoing process. and every individual who understood the choice had the power to influence the collective outcome. The disturbing details hidden in the lace of a 1913 wedding portrait had revealed one of the most important messages in human history, that the future was not predetermined, but rather the result of conscious choices made by individuals who understood their responsibility to future generations. Evangeline Thorne had seen both the promise and the peril of humanity's rapid development, and she had embedded that vision in lacework that would survive long enough to guide her descendants through their most crucial decisions. Her wedding portrait was not just a document of the past, it was a roadmap for the future, woven with threads of prophetic wisdom that connected all of human time in a single, impossible moment of choice. The lace prophecy continued to evolve, its patterns shifting with humanity's collective consciousness, serving as both warning and guide for a species standing at the crossroads of its own destiny. And in museums and private collections around the world, other prophetic artifacts waited to be discovered by those ready to receive their messages about the future that still hung in the balance. If this story has opened your eyes to the possibility that our ancestors might have left us guidance for our most crucial decisions, share it with others who are ready to consider that the past and future are more connected than we ever imagined. Subscribe to stay informed about discoveries that reveal the hidden connections between prophecy, choice, and human destiny. And remember, the next time you examine a historical artifact, you might be looking at a message that has been waiting centuries for you to decode its true meaning. The wedding portrait of 1913 had indeed revealed something disturbing in its lace details. But that disturbance was not supernatural horror. It was the profound responsibility that comes with prophetic knowledge and the power to influence humanity's greatest choice. In the end, Evangeline's legacy proved that love, wisdom, and foresight could transcend time itself, offering guidance to future generations facing decisions that would determine the fate of all human consciousness.